How do?
How do?
So, we're back with Andy today. Complex subject we're going to talk about for Mental Health Monday. We're going to talk about steroids. We could talk all day. Not me, this lad could, Andy, knowledge. So what we're going to do today is a short video, maybe 15-20 minutes, keep it very simple, and then hopefully you guys will ask questions. First thing, 100 bodybuilders, all competitive. They'll all be taking different steroids, they'll all have different diets, they'll all have different training regimens, right? That is a given. Yeah, this isn't a complete guide. We're not here to advise people, but obviously in a, how would I say it, in a safe environment, people would take
Controlled
environment, that's good, steroids in quantities and the like, and quality, because there's a lot of fake stuff out there that, you know, would be safe if people are going to take them. Yeah, so this isn't a definitive guide. We're going to touch on a few subjects, and then hopefully you guys will ask questions, and we can do a bit longer video. So we've already discussed keeping Andy on track with his wealth of knowledge, which I'm going to do. So I'm just going to ask some simple questions. We'll try and get him to answer simply. First thing I'm going to ask him is about age and taking steroids. So over to you, Andy.
Right, okay, so briefly, steroids are generally known as a catch-all term, and that they can encompass a very broad umbrella of drugs. So if we're talking about steroids, we might be talking about performance enhancing drugs and whatever. So if we're talking about anabolic and androgenic steroids,
what's the difference between anabolic and androgenic?
So you have anabolic and androgenic steroids. So the anabolic component means that they essentially repair muscle, or they promote muscle growth.
Yep.
Via varying mechanisms. Androgenicity means masculinizing, so it means testosterone as a anabolic steroid, which it is an anabolic androgenic steroid. Its anabolic component is in so when a young lad's going through puberty, it'll gain muscular size.
Yep.
But then the androgenicity, or the androgen act of the testosterone, will deepen his voice,
make you grow hair.
Yep. Spotty, things like that are associated with masculinity. People can extend that to anger, but that's a very tenuous subject.
Yep.
What I would say is, if we're talking about anabolic and androgenic steroids, and in this class I am also including something now that's popular on the supplement market called SARMs. They're in the same class. So what they do, the root of the question is, when you put something in your body that is effective anabolically, it will shut down your natural hormonal production, because it has been given in what's known as an exogenous form. So it's been taken, and then your body realizes
that it's got stuff
yeah,
there.
yeah, I've got it, I don't need it no more. So that's why some people get testicular shrinkage when taking anabolic steroids, because it will, what's known as shut down the, it's called HPTA, and that's just basically your testosterone production.
You don't need your nuts, so they...
Yeah, exactly. But it's not only your nuts. HPTA is hypothalamus, pituitary, testes, axis.
So they're hormones that you're producing.
The complete circuit then, right, I've got it now. I've got it in an oral, injectable, whatever form I am putting it in. That entire system has what's called a negative feedback loop. So it realizes, whoa, like there's a dose. There's what's called a super physiological, so more than what is normal to your normal physiology. You have then gone over and above that, and it will stop your own production.
Which is why the whole quantity thing is
it's
quite important. You know, the amount that you're taking.
See, this is an ongoing argument, but I'm generally of the belief that even the smallest dose of the mildest mild, and we can discuss that, but if it's effective, it'll shut you down.
Right, okay.
So if
let's into the next question then. The difference in injecting steroids and taking them orally.
So back when they discovered testosterone and then they wanted to administer it in whatever mechanisms, they decided that injections and what have you are uncomfortable, unpleasant and whatever, so that we should develop an oral form of medication. So they altered the chemical structure. So again, I'll just say what it is, and then so they, on the 17th carbon position of testosterone, they alpha alkylated it. So and that will say, it will say C17 AA. What that essentially means is then that compound is methylated, which means that when ingested,
taking it orally,
it will have a greater bioavailability. So testosterone, you swallow it, it's broken down, it's gone, it don't work. A lot of anabolic and androgenic steroids orally, they just don't work. They need changing and they need methylating, so they can pass through the liver. So your body
your body can use them then. Right.
But in that process, it has to go through the liver, orally,
and they are toxic.
And again, in varying quantities, some quite bad, some slightly mild, so go through the liver. So it has to, orally, it has to go through the liver twice, which means once when it's ingested, and then a second time as it goes around your body and then through your liver again. Whereas an injection will only just go around your body and through once. So there's not as much strain on the liver when it only has to have what's called one pass of the liver, compared to an oral needing two.
Next question. Explain that. I understand that now. Availability, quality, and obviously we've got snide products, haven't we, now on the market?
So in this country, possession consumption is legal. It's legal.
I had a friend who doctor was prescribing steroids.
Certainly. So they certain ones still do have medical applications. That's what although
they were invented for.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So some ironically were invented by scientists to be really good at performance enhancing, but generally they were designed for a medical purpose.
Yeah.
So many years ago they couldn't treat anemia, for example, which is a lack of red blood cells.
Yeah.
So what they needed to do was so they had to create an anabolic and androgenic steroid, which would then, through a process, make the kidneys create red blood cells. Now, it is manufactured and it's called erythropoietin, which is EPO.
EPO, I've heard of that.
Everyone's
seen the
heard
names.
of that one.
Everyone, EPO, the cyclists.
Exactly.
Giving it to the cyclists, Lance Armstrong, etc.
Yeah.
Which gives you more oxygen.
Yeah.
So you can go harder, go longer.
Yeah.
Right. Nice one.
So, 50 years ago, some poor old dear would have had to take a powerful anabolic androgenic steroid for it to send that message to her kidneys to do that. Now they can just give you a jab of EPO.
EPO, yeah.
Or other things dependent on kidney function.
What would you say about the where you, if people are, obviously people do, these bodybuilders and that, they have the different sources and that.
Yeah.
I just thought about this on the way down. I thought, people know I've never been to a rave in my life. What a sad person I am, I know. But at raves, how rude. At raves, I think it was a cracking idea that people who've bought ecstasy can go to a tent and have it tested and make sure that they are taking what they've purchased. I thought that was great. And I also thought, in an ideal world, if you were purchasing steroids, you could have them tested, so you were in fact going to be using what you believed them to be. I remember way back when, a good 20 years ago, before I left Sheffield, my mate worked at a gym, you know, steroids like most gyms readily available. He says, right, have a look at that, have a look at that. Yeah, spot the difference. I couldn't tell a difference.
Yeah.
Pop a tablet, pop one out, couldn't tell a difference. That East European shite, that is legit.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that's quite a...
So yeah, again, it's a difficult because then if you say, well, stick to pharmaceutical products, then there is a high value in companies counterfeiting high value. So it's dependent on. I mean, now if you can get your stuff tested, so on a couple of levels, so you can have a basic simple test like you were saying then about ecstasy at a rave. It's just like you put it in a bottle and it tells you if that is active, but it doesn't tell you in what quantity, so it's only partially helpful. The best thing is you can have it sent off and it will be tested. However, that is expensive, and not a lot of people will go to that extent.
So it can also already be an expensive product, can't it?
I mean, initially when you're starting, it's not so expensive, but then things what are known as ancillary drugs, so drugs that are required to reduce side effects and things like that, and other drugs, the money then starts accumulating when you start adding other things that are under this umbrella of steroids. That's when it starts getting expensive. So if you come down to, let's say, a bottle of testosterone, so a man produces roughly between 5 and 7 milligram a day. That's 70 to, well, it's about 50 milligram a week. A bottle of testosterone is usually, if it's a multi-dose vial, there's about 10 mil in it. Should be 10 mil, and they're normally between 250 milligram and 400 milligram of testosterone in that, in 1 mil. So if you've got 10 mil, 250 milligram, you've got 2,500 milligrams. You're only producing 50 a week, and you've just bought 2,050 for, we aren't giving exact prices, a bottle of cheap whiskey, no more than that.
So you can buy big quantities, and like I've already said, if you over a prolonged period of time took big quantities, your body will stop producing.
It don't even have to be that way. It's shown that one injection helps. Certain ones, it will shut you down significantly. Because
we're doing Mental Health Monday, like I say, guys, we're going to try and keep it simple. Just touch on a few subjects. Just touch on roid rage, about sort of the anger that comes with, if you can.
Yeah, so there is again an argument certainly amongst users that, well, it's a complete and utter fallacy, and there is this sort of repeated mantra that if someone's a dickhead and they use these things, then they're just gonna become a bigger dick. If they are a respectful, calm, dutiful person and they decide to do something in moderation and control, then it is unlikely to have an impact that will alter that person's perceptions where they become particularly aggressive. It can be, it's typically seen, in my opinion, in people who are immature, people who have misunderstandings of their
psyche.
And it gets expressed in a certain way. And then there are also particularly steroids that are, so when we're talking about anabolic and androgenic, there are some that are very, very androgenic. So that means that when we're talking about it masculinizing, it's essentially firing these androgen centers in your brain. So allegedly a certain boxer took one before biting someone's ear. So a particular androgen that would make somebody
aggressive.
Fighters use those. They would be typically known as androgens, not anabolics, because they're more skewed towards being androgenic.
Right, yeah, explain that well. Little boxer in there. We didn't mention Mike Tyson, but obviously. So, just coming up to 20 minutes, guys. We're just going to round it off now. Like I said, come back with questions. This guy could talk all day. I'm going to ask you about longevity in bodybuilding. A lot of bodybuilders, if you go back to sort of Arnold and before, are still around now on the planet. Yeah. Still look quite healthy, still quite fit.
Yeah.
a lot of sort of modern day, sort of 90s onwards, are dying young.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot well-known bodybuilders.
Certainly.
So obviously I'm thinking that steroids or drugs or, you know, how you train or looking after yourself, it's obviously changed, hasn't it, from 60s and 70s, and like you said, 90s, it changed quite drastically. If you look at bodybuilders then and bodybuilders now, the sport itself, isn't it?
And that is that visual difference. Like
they used to be quite aesthetic, athletic looking, didn't they? 50s, 60s, your Steve Reeves and that were, you know, Tarzan and that.
And something that the average male would theoretically aspire to. In some way or another.
Did genetics play a part as well?
Always.
Right.
Always.
The genetics a big one.
Yeah, but not in ways that you wouldn't imagine. So in how effective your responsiveness is to training, nutrition, drugs, but also, say for example, one that people don't think of commonly is your ability to handle side effects. So some people on low doses stuff, they may get severe acne, or they might lose their hair. They might not like it. A lot of lads start losing their hair. They don't like it.
No.
And you can't. At that point, it's you make a decision. Is it bodybuilding, powerlifting, strength sports, or your hairline? So, and some people, it's entirely up to them, and they're justified in their own reasons for whatever. But
it's a choice, isn't it?
Yeah, it comes to a point that
an informed choice. We've used that before, haven't we?
Exactly, and that's what it's all about.
So we're going to finish now. Final question. I think we've kept that quite simple, and hopefully people will come back with questions, like I say. So you think they trained healthier and more sensible back then, or there was more knowledge, or
no, less knowledge, ironically.
Right, so, less knowledge. So why
they die now? So there is there's more knowledge now. So, but we're in like sort of a post 90s, noughties era now, where people are sort of aware of kidney failure. And a lot of bodybuilders, they do. There's so much stuff that's swept under the carpet as, oh, you were cramping bad on stage. Well, you didn't really see. And they may not have to go to this extreme, but they may have used intravenous diuretics, sat in a sauna, and using insulin to force carbohydrates in muscle. And when it gets to that point,
it's a brutal sport, isn't it?
Almost certainly.
Training, the dieting is horrendous.
You
know, there's plenty of stuff on YouTube. You know, there's stuff that people go for and almost crack, and that has got to affect your mental health, hasn't it? It is absolutely. There's two lads, right? I know 3 people who've been Mr. Britain at their weight categories. One in the last 20 years, the others 40 years ago. They were 2 brothers, both very competitive. They placed first, second and third at various times over a 5-year period. I've seen them when they've done with Mr. Britain. They play so, you know, one might place first, one was third. They would go absolutely crazy, mate. They would absolutely binge eat crisps, chocolate, but I've also seen them with a lead up to it as well, brutalizing, you know, trying to. And then more modern, there's a lad I work with at Forest Bank, I won't mention his name because he was quite a private guy. he won Mr. Britain. He was not what you expected. He's physical. He was brilliant.
Yeah.
Trained very science based. Obviously, did tech gear and that, but it was science based. How he trained, you know, he was 40 minutes a day in gym. That's it. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to leave it at that, Andy. You did well to keep yourself under control. The EPO example were good. So guys, you want to know more about steroids? Obviously mental health, brutal sport with bodybuilding, but you know, medically is what they were invented for. There's loads more to talk about. We haven't mentioned by name. You know, the combinations of drugs, these performance enhancing drugs now, all sorts of stuff. So if you want to know more about different things, let us know. You happy with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Job's a good one. Alcide, final word?
So I have no final word. Keep safe.
Yeah, keep safe. See you later, guys.